know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?
Hey, Felicia, greetings, everyone. How's everyone doing? Peace. I know it's been some time. Oh, man, I can't even remember the last show we did. I think it's like back in March.
Yeah, Magical Kemet.
Yeah, wow. That's some time.
I know.
Can't even believe you've been away for that long. Anyway, family, how's everyone doing? Peace to everyone. Peace to the happy family. We are excited to be back. We promise not to leave you, not to have this much of a gap anymore. You know, we have some things in store, upcoming future. But before we get into those things, we definitely want to acknowledge the transitioning of one of our great elders, Baaba Heru, was such a tremendous figure in the HAPI world. From a foundational standpoint, it was Baaba Heru that really kind of set the stage and helped us get to the point where we're at. A lot of times those types of things may go unannounced or unseen to many people, but inside the core of HAPI, we understood and knew who Baaba Heru was. And for me personally, such a tremendous, like I said, tremendous figure, and always someone who can be counted on in times of need. You know, it was Baaba Heru who introduced me to Tahuti films. Brother Robbie Gay Seed, who was instrumental in finishing or producing the documentary HAPI, which is the foundation for all things that we do in the world of HAPI. So I remember that day like it was yesterday, just going to the studio of Ptah, sitting with him and just getting to a conversation about being what the project was and what we needed, and just got right on the phone, and the rest is history, as we say. So, I mean, those types of things don't happen by accident. I believe he was definitely directed by the ancestors to come and be a part of that project and get us on the right track to where we are now. So again, it's with heavy hearts that we speak of this, but we understand fully in our civilization and our culture who and what we are. And with that being said, I am who I am because of who we are. Ubuntu is the title of this show, and it ties into so many different things that we're doing. But it was just apropos to definitely acknowledge Baaba Heru as we begin this segment. So, Sister Felicia, what are your thoughts and feelings on the situation? And
yeah, so one of the things I appreciate about elders who decide, or older people who decide to be elders, is that they're always in a place of trying to teach you something from their life, always showing you something, and are really committed to you getting it right. And so, you know, I came into HAPI after you had established, you know, all of these beautiful relationships. And I have to say, you know, the first time I called him, you were like, "Oh, call him for a show." I was like, wait, I don't know, you know, because it's always, sometimes it can feel very intimidating talking to somebody who you just know their work, but you don't know them, right? And you don't know how they're going to receive you. But let me tell you, he was extremely nice to me. He asked me so many questions about my life. And I was like, I was thinking, I just called to ask if you can come on at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, you know, but that's the thing. It's about them trying to figure out who you are so they know how to help you, you know. And I really just appreciated that with him. And even, you know, when I went down to the shop, he was just very, very loving. And he came, you know, every time I've seen him, he was just always in a place of giving. So I really just appreciate that. And, you know, I know that we never die. Energy never dies. But the physicalness of him, you know, I will miss him. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it's definitely, like I said, he's touched so many people, and some of those folks we'll have on a little bit later on. But so many people who are a part of Comedics 101, who came through that rites of passage, who were a part of that. I mean, so many brothers and sisters are around, around the world who were touched by him. So, anyway,
Wait, your microphone went out or something.
um, okay. So, you hear me now? We're good.
You sound like kind of far away.
I don't know.
Oh, that sounds good.
That sounds good. Okay. All right. Great. Anyway, family, on a much lighter note, we definitely want to bring the family up to speed on the things that are going on in the community, things that are going on in the world of HAPI. As we get started on this show, we do have a big announcement, something that's very near and dear and special to us that we'd like to share with you. So with that, we're going to bring on Brother Hassan Williams. Peace, my brother. How are you?
Phenomenal, brother. Peace to you, Felicia.
Peace to you, Hassan.
Yes. Hassan has been someone, I'm sure you brothers and sisters who've been around just in events, One Africa, Happy Day of Black Excellence, all the different things that we've done, the Street Festival, all these different things you've probably seen this brother's face. Good brother, strong brother, someone that kind of reminds me of some of my comrades back in the day. So, we've been thinking, Felicia and I, and one of the reasons why we've had these gaps in shows is because sometimes it's just too much to carry on. And we realized that we needed to reach out and get some more people on board in the HAPI team. So without any further ado, we want to introduce Hassan Williams, who will be a part of this process in the world of HAPI. And we are excited that he's a part of this. So, we can give Hassan an opportunity to speak about his thoughts and feelings on that, and also touch on Baaba Heru as well.
Thank you. Listen, I just want to thank y'all much. Thank y'all much for seeing me. Just for, thinking of me, to think that I can actually even do this. That's an honor. It means a lot to me. I get good energy. I get good vibes from y'all. So when you gave me the opportunity, even though I had to think about it, I was already 90% there on saying yes, but doubt sets in, fear sets in, time, am I going to have enough time, so forth and so on. How am I going to sound? Am I going to be able to speak to the people like you all speak to the people? But, after some deep thought and listening to the ancestors, they basically was telling me, you better go get this. So, here we are. And I appreciate it.
No, definitely. We appreciate you as well. And, we don't stand to win anything if we try to do this as individuals. Absolutely. And this plays perfectly into I am who we are because of who we are. And that's what this is about. That's the mission of HAPI. That's the spirit of HAPI, and it's power and unity. And if we're not trying to collude and work with other like-minded people, we're wasting our time. So, you're definitely a brother that we see being like-minded, and we definitely want to work with you.
I appreciate that.
So one of the other things we was asking also is, I know you really didn't have much of a relationship with Baaba Heru, but just from your perspective, what impact he may have had on your life?
Well, he actually had an impact on me when I actually met him. I met him twice. I work at Medgar Evers College, so he did come to the college. Tony Browder had an event there. He had a lecture, a presentation, and Baaba Heru was there. So I met him briefly there. But after I came back from Kemet the first time that I went, in Kemet, I met a brother from Brooklyn. His name is Jason. And, we became real cool. We became brothers. He's my little big brother. And, he said to me, let's go down to Baaba Heru's shop, his jewelry shop, and, just go pay our respects. So I was like, let's do it. So we went down there, and this was pretty much without an appointment, I believe, too, because I think sometimes you have to have an appointment. And he just accepted us with open arms, basically like just coming off the street. We got with him. He spoke with us. He dropped a couple of jewels with us, constantly smiling, open arms. So I respect that, from a brother that just, is just ready to give us his knowledge with open arms. And he wasn't fearful, none of that. Took pictures with us. So, I respect that, and I'm gonna cherish that.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's up. I did want to add my little Hassan story. So, yeah. So, because family, I want you to understand that, like Hassan coming on is super cool. Because I peeped this brother's energy because you've been to like every event we've had. And I remember we were down in DC showing the film and you rolled up. But family, I want you to understand that like when Hassan comes, he just doesn't like, oh, I'm just coming. He brings his whole entire beautiful family. So shout out to the Williams family. Okay. And I think that's the piece that I love the most. And I remember when we did Happy Day of Black Excellence, and I told Taki, I was like, okay, whoever is the first person who get the tickets or whatever, when we pour libations in the beginning of the event, whoever that first person was who bought tickets, we're going to, gift them the plant, from libations. And I tell you, as soon as we went live, 5 tickets, Hassan Williams. And I was like, there it is. I just remember him carrying his plan out. So this is really good. He's been to Egypt with us. Like this is really a very cool thing, family. So please welcome Hassan. And yeah.
Thank you. And I appreciate y'all again. And even before you all giving me this opportunity, I just appreciate y'all, letting me in with open arms into your lives, because I met Taki first over the phone, actually. And that's wild and enough. Like, that's crazy right there, that he actually answered his phone and was willing to talk to, a complete stranger. But I met him through the phone, and then, we would see each other at the African Festival and, got good vibes from him. We have great conversations. I asked him, just about everything under the sun pertaining to like Kemetic history, and, he always has the answer. He always has, a good enough answer for me to follow up on and do my research. And then with you, Felicia, like your realism is what gets me, sitting down with you, chatting with you, and you just being straight real with me. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a little happy love fest.
No. It's good, but Happy was built on love, so it's really that's understand that's the foundation, and there's a lot of work to be done, and realize that as this work expands, we need other people. So family, don't be surprised if we tap you on the shoulder and ask if you want to get down. There's people in the chat here that we've been kind of looking like, yeah, how can we expand? As soon as we get some other pieces in place, definitely gonna have to add on to that.
Absolutely.
But so we have this beautiful show. Again, I am who I am because of who we are, Ubuntu. And backstage, we have 2 great scholars that's going to be able to add on to that conversation. Professor James Small and Brother Jabari Azazi. And then, family, these are people who are 2 brothers who are no strangers to this platform. They always bring a wealth of knowledge when they come, and there's been so many things that has happened over the past since March that we'd like to share with the family, and these 2 brothers have been a part of that experience. So without any further ado, we're going to bring them in and we'll get this discussion started. Peace, brothers. How you feeling today?
Peace and blessings to the Happy family, and welcome, Brother Hassan.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Pleasure meeting you. I heard about you briefly. but your spirit comes through loud and clear.
Thank you much.
Yes, yes. Well, family, before we get started in the discussion, I'm sorry, Jabari. Go ahead,
I was
brother.
going to say, I got to concur. I mean, Brother Hassan, when he's in the room, and you have just a conversation with him and see him in the context of his family, you are inspired that maybe we're going to be all right, right? Because his family is coming along with him, and that's exactly what we must do. So, welcome. And let's get into a great conversation.
Yes, sir. Family, before we get started, please like and share. So someone put it in the chat earlier. Like the show, share the show. Let's get going. So, brothers, obviously, we have the sad news of the transition in the Baaba Heru. Professor Smalls, we'll start with you, and just if you can share your thoughts and feelings and your experiences with Baaba Heru and with the family, please.
Yes, sir. I've wished him, and when I heard, and I'm wishing him again a safe journey back home. We came here from somewhere, and the only place we can go when we leave here is back to the somewhere we came from, whatever we call that somewhere. Baba called it Heru. That's the cause for everything. But I met Baba way back before there was him and Dr. Ben was actually the only two people out here talking about Kemet. That's real. That was known in the public. I met him when he was a member of the NYPD, fighting to keep his locks, which he did successfully. And I met him through a friend, not just a friend, but my bodyguard and security chief in Muslim Mosque in OAU, Baba Willie Starks, who was Malcolm's bodyguard in the nation and out of the nation. And they were very close friends. And he made all of Brother Stark's jewelry. Brother Stark used to wear his beautiful bracelet. The first time I saw any of his jewelry was Brother Stark's wearing them. And that's how we met. And all through the years, we intersected on multiple kinds of things, including the beginning of the ASCAC group. Many of the people who are now the leadership in ASCAC was not in ASCAC yet. When Baba Heru was sitting at a table at City College with Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Dr. Jeffries, Jeannie Bain, and others, helping Baba Carruthers and Baba Hilliard to design what became ASCAC. And that's a part of him a lot of people may not have known, because he was the activist Kemetic scholar who was learned in a very deep way in the priesthood craft. I don't even like the term priesthood, but that's what people understand. But it's the craft of knowing the sacred wisdom of our ancestors as it manifests itself in Kemet. And he taught that everywhere and to everybody that he came in contact with. And so the last time I think we were together, we did something on Sonetta show, which I still watch every now and then. And we talked maybe once or twice. I don't think I've spoke to him more than once in 2025. I wasn't even aware that he was very ill until Felicia told me. And that happened to be the day that he transitioned, the day after he transitioned, the day after. And I was trying to reach out, but he did his work, and nonstop, unrelenting for decades. Very few people can do that and stay on the course and advance himself while he's teaching other people. And he did that. And so the hundreds of thousands, if not millions around the world that are now involved in an understanding of Kemet and the spiritual culture. He went beyond just the historical discussion. He was in the historical discussion, but heavily into the spiritual interpretation of what Kemet represented to the African world yesterday and today. So we have those teachings, we have the students and the societies that he produced. I remember once we were in Jersey, I forgot the shrine in Jersey, but he helped to establish that shrine, and he trained the young people who were the priests and the priestess at that shrine. And he showed me his birth. He knew as much about the Ankh tradition and about the Yoruba tradition and the Voodoo tradition as he did about the Kemetic tradition. And he knew how to explain them simply. So he was a great, great teacher, great scholar, great activist. And he did his time. So now he's back with the creation. And now he's back with where we call ancestors. And so I wish him the best journey ever. And that his judgment scene, I know, will weigh in favor of his heart, being much, much lighter than the feather. So safe journey, brother. Safe journey.
Wow, it's beautiful. Thank you, Professor Small. Jabari?
Going after Professor Small was always a tall task, because he's able to put things that many think are complex very plainly so everyone can understand. And I really appreciate what Baaba Small has said, because knowing Baaba as I did, for those of you who don't know, I was initiated by Baaba Heru in 1997, 1998. He actually was one of the most important people in my life, and one of the most important people in so many people's lives. But he had the ability to speak to you, right? He wasn't just there to talk about the tradition or history. He did those things, but he wanted to know about you. He wanted to truly make a connection to you. And if you spoke with him for 5 minutes, his love for our people was just absolutely evident. It oozed from his pores. And that was one of the things that most inspired me about him. I have had the opportunity, and I guess this means I'm getting a little bit old now, Baaba. I think I'm getting a little old, but I've had the opportunity to be trained by Dr. Clark, to be trained by Dr. Ben. The person who most influenced my scholarship was Dr. James Turner at Cornell University. But there are a large number of ancestors now who did great work, who I have stood next to, who I either carried their books or sat at their feet when they were teaching. And I have to say that the relationship I had with Baaba Heru was different. Baaba Heru was the person that allowed me to stand upright. I had already had a degree in Africana Studies when I met Baaba Heru, but he became, I dare say, other than my father, the most important man in my life. He was the person who, when I had a challenge, I knew who to go to. Of course, I was not always comfortable going to him, because sometimes he would, as a parent would do, he would chastise you and then love you, right? It was the chastisement that I didn't always want. And so when something would go on in my life that was challenging, sometimes he would call me. I have not heard from you, beloved. Where are you? What is happening? It was almost like he sensed that I needed him. And so he was the person that allowed me to go from a young man to now a man, as some say, on the 5th floor in his 50s. And throughout all those years, he has always attempted to ensure that I have good character, that my love for our people maintains, even though sometimes our people can be challenging. He's the one that would sit with me and process that. He's the person that taught me not just, I learned from great scholars, but he taught me how to be a practitioner. He was the one that helped me understand how ancient traditions could translate in the modern world. And when people question whether we should be able to translate these traditions, he's the one that would say, why not? Why should it just be in a moldy book? Why should we be talking about these as dead cultures and dead languages in a place that is confined entirely to the annals of history? And in doing that, he inspired me, and he inspired so many people around me. And so I have to say that hearing particularly about his passing, um, I guess I was a bit numb, but today has been a bit difficult. Baba Heru was my spiritual father. Baba Heru was the person that he was like family. When my sisters heard that he passed, they came to commiserate with me because they knew what role and what central place he was in my life. And so I just hope that for those of us who had an opportunity to see him up close, and for those of us who got to see him not so close, we recognize that the greatest thing that we can do is not to mourn, but the greatest thing that we can do is to seek to complete his work, to seek to ensure that this now golden ancestor is proud of what we do. And so that is where I am trying to be, while I am trying not to cry on camera. And that I've been trying not to cry on camera since Friday. I'm an ugly crier. I'm an ugly crier. I just know that I feel the loss of his physical form. And I'll say to you, as he was the founder and chief priest of the Shrine of Ptah, he actually gave me my Ankh and instructed me to open the Shrine of Ma'at. I knew that when I was initiated that I wanted to be part of the Wenwet, we can call it, the Ununt, you can call it, the priesthood, so that everyone who's not familiar with the language might know. And I always intended I'd be a priest in the Shrine of Ptah. Well, that actually is not the charge that he gave me. He gave me the charge to open the Shrine of Ma'at, me and my first wife, Anika Daniels Osaze, who I know very much is ailing too. I had the opportunity to speak to her on yesterday and actually since Friday into today, and she's struggling as much as I am. So I just have to say that we have to remember that, and this is something that if anyone taught me this and lived it, it was Baba. Death does not destroy us. In our text, it says that we are providing offerings so that those glorious ones, the Ankh, could go into the land of those who were true of voice, what the ancients called Makeru, those people who are rectified and enter into the afterlife, and then return into the physical form, into the physical realm to influence us, and then go back and forth as they choose. And I know that that is what he told me. That's what the texts say. I have to remind myself of that when I feel his absence. And I know that he was ailing in his last days. So I know that he is now unencumbered by his physical form and ready to do all those things that ancestors can do without pain, without suffering. And so that gives me some solace at this period of time.
Thank you, Jabari. Just, as we move on, some things come to mind. And one of the things that I think of immediately is Ubuntu, and I am who I am because of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share how that fits into, I would say the person, but just the overall essence of Baaba Heru? Because I believe it ties in beautifully. And when we first started thinking about the show was prior to his transitioning, but it just made sense. The title and everything it just came together for me kind of poetically. But can you express how those two things tie in together?
Are you speaking to me, or are you speaking to?
Yes.
Oh, well, clearly I have to say to you that as we think about the role that some of these elders play and now ancestors play in ensuring that we remember that we are unified, that we are not on this journey on our own, that we are not, that individualism is in many ways the artifice of the youngest people on the planet. Those ancestors who we revere, those elders who we revere, are constantly telling us that the connection that we have with the people around us are the most important things that we can possibly have, that they are more important than those things that we can buy or the things that we are given. And we have to remember that. We have to remember that the power of each of us is the relationships that we are able to maintain. And I know that this was something that was of critical importance to Baaba Heru and so many of the ancestors that I walked with. He honestly wanted to have a deep relationship with every African, as he would say, that he could meet. He's the person that speaks to the person at the ATM location, right? When people are like, oh, who's looking at my number? He's having a conversation. He's the person that's listening and talking to you at the restaurant, and the person who, because of the way that he carried himself, that people felt connected to reach out to ask questions of. That was Baaba. He loved us so dearly that he gave to us in every moment that he lived. I know very well as someone, I'm not even sure if he'd want me to, I think he'd be okay with me sharing this. Obviously, you know that he also was the proprietor of the studio of Ptah, where he made such wonderful, such magnificent pieces of joy ari, as he would say it, not jewelry, but joy ari. He would to make happy, he would say. And I have to say to you that as he did that, there were those times that we smiled and spoke to him, but didn't necessarily buy a lot of stuff, right? Yeah, how many of us had those lengthy conversations and didn't buy nary a ring, didn't buy a pendant, didn't buy, listen, that's who he was. He talked to you for hours and you didn't spend anything, right? And I remember this is early in our relationship. Maybe this is 2000 or something like that. I actually said to him, do you do a lot of sales online? He said, sales online? Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting there thinking, the reason why I asked him that is because I had sat with him all day and he didn't make any sales. And I was like, what? How is this working? And so eventually I would ask him how he was able to pay rent, for example, and pay staff members. And he said that he was doing that with his pension. Instead of living, now Baaba Small knows this because he knew Baaba when he was going through it. I heard the stories afterwards. The NYPD was not kind to him. He had to fight to remain in those streets with a gun on one hip and an Ankh on the other. Yeah. And so when he finally retired, many of us revolutionary Africans would have said, I did a lot of great work. Now I can go and fish. Now I can go and read. Now I can go and sit on the couch and watch TV. That's not what he did. Instead, he put his own finances into a business that he thought would meet people where they needed to be met. And that is powerful. Everything about ancient Africa, everything about modern Africa is not about what we read in books. It's about how we experience Africa. And so his pieces were an experience. And I know very well that there were many times that he was financing that business himself because he said that this is the calling that his father had given him. This is the Ubuntu, once again, living in Ubuntu, believing that you could do well yourself, but that is in fact not well, that would be some sort of facade, that in fact, the only way that you could do well, the only way you could be well is if we are on the path to wellness, if we are on the path to returning to the source, returning to our traditions. And he truly believed that and lived it every moment of every day.
Wow, thank you for that. Professor Smalls, would like for you to pretty much tie into that and speak to how Baaba Heru and Ubuntu are connected.
Well, Ubuntu is a modern term now. It's an old term. But, every decade or so, we take a new term to explain what we are about, And in the 60s, it's not about the me, it's about the we. Now we're using another language to say the same thing. Before we used the term Ubuntu or other terms that we used in between, it was about, it's not about you, me, it's about the we. He lived that. You know, what makes Baaba Heru special and different. He wasn't a lecturer that discussed Africa. He lived Africa. There's a big difference. He wasn't someone who just researched and helped share that research while remaining in another culture or intellectual space in his head. He became the thing he learned about his ancestors. And he lived that. He did that when he was still on NYPD. That's why they couldn't get it. You know, you didn't understand the strength that this man had. And he wasn't loud and vociferous about his defense. That's what was so cool about the brother. I think he may be one of the reasons why I started to wear locks. Because there's very few people wearing locks back then. And he was the premier man that I knew in my space, through Brother Stock, that he didn't wear locks because it was the style. Because there was no style. He was the style. You know what I'm saying? He wore it because it was an expression of his authenticity. He knew that under those cloth on the head of the pharaoh was this growth of hair that we call locks, this sacred locks, this thing, these antennas that we call the back in the early days. And so Ubuntu only has reality when we become it. He was Ubuntu before anybody in this hemisphere heard the word. He lived his whole life as I am the African. The Africans, all of them in the world, is me. And the system that he projected, one of our oldest systems that we've been able to resurrect, the system that was produced in Kemet. He understood that that was the same system produced in Haiti called Voodoo, that was the same system produced in Nigeria called Yoruba, that is the same system produced in the Akhans, as is the same system produced in Aksum and Ethiopia. There's only one law of nature. There's only one set of laws. There's only one laws of the cosmos, only one set. There's only one set of laws and principles that governs the ecology we live in. He understood that. That's what this was about. That I am this thing. He understood that Ra wasn't something in the sky, right? He understood that those symbols, and I was reading something by him the other night, and when I heard that he had left, and you know, your mind just go, let me feel him, let me touch him. And the best thing was to find some speech or something, and it's over here somewhere. But he was talking about Asar and Aset, and he was talking about them not being people, not being persons. But these were quality and attributes of cosmology and nature itself. And I learned this concept of anthropomorphism from him. I remember the first lecture I did at First World, I was so darn scared I didn't know what to do. And I had to compare the Netchers to the Orishas. And I did not know how to start that. And I called everybody, and he was one of the people. And he wouldn't tell me how to do it, he just said, relax. Just relax. And I finally understood what he meant. When you relax, it comes to you, because it's always there. The spirit is always there. This truth is always there. And you have to prepare yourself to be a receptacle to receive that truth so that you become that truth. That's why he had to leave. Baba had become the divine. And any holy book that you read, it will tell you that. So the people who teach in this book won't tell you that. It's in the Torah, it's in the Bible, it's in the Quran. It tells you that you are the divine and you of this thing that they call the Most High. Well, that Most High in Kemet we refer to as Ra or Amen. When you become that thing, the body can no longer contain you. And his whole life was working to become this thing that we call the Most High, this thing we call the Amen, this thing we call the Ra. He became that. Now his teaching is beyond any boundaries of flesh. You will not even know when you choose him to teach you, but he will know when he needs to teach someone. That spirit, that electricity, that vibration, that rhythm that he manifests, and all of that wisdom that he accumulated made him the divine. Our law says the only thing that exists is the divine. We are just expressions, aspects of it, but we contain the totality of its possibilities. He became the totality of the possibilities.
Powerful.
Yeah, and I actually want both you guys to answer this, Jabari and Professor. So, what do we do? As people still left here, like how do we use Baaba Heru's life to push us forward into unity?
If I may, as the elder, you go first, Jabari.
I wasn't going to start speaking before the elder did.
The elder card.
You want Baaba Heru's hand to come down on the camera and slap me in the back of the head?
It's only going to be a couple of sentences, Felicia. Become the truth that you learn. That's what Baaba did.
Wait, say it one more time.
Oh, you got to write that one down, y'all.
That you learn.
Become the truth that you learn.
Yeah, that's it. When you do that, the thing that we call the thing is always in us, about us, around us, above us. But we have to be ready to receive the thing. And the wisdom teachings that Baaba and others gave us was the thing that prepared you to be the receptacle, to receive the thing. That's what wisdom teaching should do. Wisdom simply means the appropriate application of the knowledge that you gain understanding of that came from those people you call your ancestors. So once you do that, the teacher is inside of you, the main primary teacher is inside of you. But you have to prepare the temple, prepare the house, prepare the receptacle, so that the thing inside of you will have an environment to do its job, to teach you, to teach others about the oneness of all things.
Go ahead, Jabari.
I'm letting that sink in for a minute.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that one.
Listen, I know that sometimes our elders say something, and I don't know if y'all at home got a chance to write it down. I'm on camera, so y'all better write it down and text me, right? This is one of those moments where you hear something profound and then you mess it up because you didn't write it down. So write it down. I heard something the other day, when you're learning, you have to I don't remember. You should have been on the live. Don't do that. Write down the gems that the elders give us.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to write down things that Dr. Clark said, that Dr. Ben said, and of course many things that Baaba Heru said. And as I sit with those elders who have been proven by struggle, those elders who have done the work, I have the honor of sitting here with one of those other elders who has meant so much to us for decades, Baba Small. I mean, there are a few elders. There's a handful now of elders that we still have that reverence for, and we have to. I'm going to take a minute, not even answer the question, because I think my spirit is saying to me that we must protect, revere, and love our elders while they are in physical form. And we have one here, an elder that has been around forever. I did not know Baba Small until I was pretty old. But you know what? I knew him because he was the elder of my big brother, Ken Glover at Cornell. So whenever Ken Glover gave me love, he would say, "Did you get down to see Professor Small?" And I'll be like, "You have not introduced me to him." But Professor Small lived through that older brother that supported me in my early years. And so we have to make sure that we are supporting our elders. We should make sure they want for nothing. And I know that that's a hard thing because we see them sometimes and we think that they're these magnificent entities. And when we turn off the camera or we put down the book, maybe we assume that we put them away in the closet and we power them down. But they live like human beings, and they should not struggle while they live like human beings. So while I'm not answering the question, let me say that I don't think that we did enough for Baaba Heru. We can't wring our hands and cry about that now. We have to make sure that we do enough for the elders that are still here doing the work. And we have one of those elders, one of those chief elders that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people would mention as one of those lights, one of those guiding forces, just off the top of their tongue. There are so many people who would talk about Baba Small just off the top of their tongue. People who have never met him that know that I am able to be who I am because that elder did that work there and influenced someone else who was influencing me. With regard to answering the question, I have to honestly say that, well, maybe that is the answer to the question.
That is the answer.
Maybe that is the answer to the question.
Becoming the truth that you learn.
Yeah. I think
we went to Ghana last year, and we had a wonderful time. That was the first time we had a chance to be together. We talk all the time, but to be together on a day-by-day basis in years.
Well, that you called me on the way back, right?
Heru became the truth. It's like that piece is I think it's in the pyramid text, where after the dissertation on creation and having created, Shu and Tepnut and Geb and Nut and Asar and Ased and Nephthys and Set, having created the primordial hill, the Ptah and Ra, then Amun says, having done all of this stuff, then he realized, I am of my mother Nun, meaning, and that's the last part of it. He says, and I expanded in everything, meaning all of the forces and power that was given to me by the primordial waters, I gave it to everything in creation. And then I remembered that I'm from that element, the primordial waters of Nun. That's Ubuntu, meaning there's only one. And even I, who is the big dude doing all the great things, I come from that one. And that means everything that proceeded from me came from the one. And it is only the one that exists. We are simply different expressions. Even Ra was just an expression. Amen was an expression. Set, Shu, Tepnut were expression of this one thing that all claims to be the primordial waters, the black waters of Nun, which is undifferentiated matter before technology began to express itself. And so, and that's what Ubuntu is talking about. It's not talking about personality figuring out how to be friends with anybody. It's talking about understanding that I am you and you are me. The Yoruba are called that Lukomi. I belong to you and you belong to me. That means I can't exist without you. You can't exist without me. You may have an illusion of an existence without me, which would be nothing more than a tear in the fabric,
It is such a fundamental concept to African philosophy that wherever culture you go, you will hear that our family members on the continent attempted to describe this fundamental principle. In the Khan traditions, there is the symbol of Funtum Fenkum Denkem Fenkum. And it's a fantastic symbol. It is two crocodiles that are crossed,
sharing the same belly.
And it actually, you understand that they are one. They share the same belly. So the argument is, why are we fighting when we share the same belly? Why are we fighting? Why are we snapping at each other? when we are actually one. And so this is another way to actually understand that this philosophical comment is all over the continent. This philosophical comment is emblazoned in images and symbols because it was so important. Human beings have this magnificent ability to begin to master our five senses, right? And we can actually be confused to think that that is all there is. That only things that we can see, touch, hear, taste, and feel are the things that exist. And this is where this idea, this artifice of individualization comes from.
Right.
And so our philosophies remind us continually that we are actually one. And so it is important for us to ensure that we are doing what is good for the collective, that in fact we only exist because the collective exists. And so this is a powerful concept. There are so many people that I watch online and I shake my head because it's very clear that the individualization is all that they think exists. These are the people that we know. We have all sorts of colorful names for them. Sometimes I think we ought to be a little careful with some of the names we call them. But you know who I'm talking about, those people who are working against our interests. I heard one person say, someone posed them a hypothetical. They said, well, what happened if we were all told that we'd go back into enslavement? Would that be a problem? And the person's response was, well, as long as I don't have to and my children don't have to, I would not be bothered. This is that artifice before us, this concept of individualization that we have to try to dispense with.
But watch how Baaba Heru dressed. Remember, when Kemet, it's only been about 35 years that Kemet became even a phrase in our language, or that Hotep became a term that we use, or that reference to Ptah and Ra. It was only in small segments, and that was in the teachings of the Grand Master of Taki, the teachings of Dr. Ben, and the teachings of Baaba Heru. There was nobody else. Now, I was reading all of your master's book as well, Taki, when Bushwick begun, when Obama was running the press and the computer, his big brother. And so Baaba Heru and Dr. Ben and Esau, there was nobody else having this discussion about Kemet. Look at the literature. You know, we had Sister Dungy's book, but that was at a level of scholarship. No people in the street was reading it until, you know, the First World Alliance came along and then ASCAC. The people we had on scene was Baba Esau, Dr. Ben, and Baaba Heru. And Esau and Heru chose to dress in the wardrobe of ancient Kemet. There was nobody. Now that may seem like a simple thing, the hairdress, the wardrobe, but nobody else was making that statement, and everybody had to wonder when they saw him why he dressed like that. You know, what he doing? What does he mean? But yet he never shied away from the aesthetics of the wardrobe that represented the culture that produced a body of wisdom that explained reality to us. Right? And so you had to wonder how much of a statement just the dress was. And it was an enormous statement because it forced everybody that saw him, especially with the head covering and the Ankh, to try to start thinking, I need to know what that is. I need to know why he doing that. I need to know why he dressed like that. I need, you know what I'm saying? We may take a simple teaching tool and not understand it. But he lived in urban America. He had worked the streets of his community. He knew his people better than most leaders. Because very few leaders have had this, like you were describing him, talking to the person at the ATM or just talking to someone on the corner. Very few of our teachers and leaders had that kind of experience with Black people.
Mm-hmm.
Being a police officer in a Black community when we were an extraordinary minority on the New York City police force.
Mm.
You know. Yet he was able to build that relationship with his people. And that's why I was able to meet him through the bodyguard of Malcolm X, okay?
Mm.
That tells you the kind of relationship and who he had relationships with. You know, and I need to call Brother Stock. I don't know whether he's heard the news. You know, he's an elder going into his 90s now.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
he represented that truth. Then he became the truth. We can break ourselves down chemically in terms of all of the elements that make up the physical part of our body. We got enough knowledge of quantum physics to know the energy, the rhythm, and the patterns, and the light and the electricity that makes up the rest of our body. But he knew all of that before any of us got into Kemet. He was already there, understanding that and becoming that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knew urban Black America, and he knew how to teach urban Black America. He knew what triggered urban Black America. He knew what inspired urban Black America. And he did it very gently. That's the other thing. This is a big dude, you know, coming off from being a law enforcement, yet he was the most gentle brother you want to meet. You know,
that's
just
right.
A gentle teacher.
Yeah, yeah. And I mentioned that being a police officer was extremely, it's hard now, but it was extremely difficult then, especially for someone who refused to discard his cultural manifestations while he was in uniform, fought to wear his locks, fought to have a beard, and also fought to have his Ankh on his side. He said to me that because they were hoping that they couldn't fire him because he was doing his job, but they were hoping that he was going to go crazy and leave. They would give him the shifts where he would have to sit with the body when someone had committed suicide. And he said when someone clearly committed suicide, the coroner is not coming for a long time. He would have a whole
the next day sometime
in a room with a body hanging, Baba Small, in the room. And he said he would literally have dental tools doing his Joy Ari. And then when the supervisor would come, he would pick his teeth, and they'd say, "This brother is really into dental hygiene. He's always picking his teeth." That was how he maintained his sanity during that time. And it was just amazing that he was able to maintain under those circumstances, so he could assist others like myself to maintain in circumstances that were certainly not as challenging as his.
And the other thing that we don't really, because when we talk about scholars, we think about people with college degrees and PhDs and all of this stuff. Baba's scholarship and his reading list was bigger than most scholars that we call scholars.
That's right.
And when you're reading the wisdom and you're gaining an understanding from that wisdom, and then you begin to live your lifestyle according to that understanding you've gained from that wisdom, that is the path he tried to teach to others. You know, live that truth, become that truth. That's what the ancestors left the stuff. They didn't chisel things on the temples for declaration. And I contend that they knew we would fall. I told that to class this 50 years ago. They knew we would fall, and they left enough material that we would learn enough to pull ourselves back up by a Kemet. And he learned that process early. Most people didn't know nothing about the Kemet or the Book of the Coming Forth or the Pyramid Text, but he did.
Mm-hmm.
That became common in our language, scholarship language, with the ASCAP grouping and the burgeoning of Black studies around the country in the 70s and 80s and 90s. But in the 70s, it was just getting birth. It really didn't become a big deal till the 90s, Black studies. And then it was gone almost as fast as we put it there. But he was going through that before. You understand? Like I said, when we were trying to put together an ASCAC, he was at that table advising Dr. Ban, Dr. Jeffries, Dr. Hilliard, and others in the boardroom at City College. I knew he was there because I invited him there.
Mm-hmm.
And I too, thank God, was blessed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw what we are afraid to say because of our Christian mind. We saw and was taught by God walking the earth as man. But because we're so Christian, Islamic, Judaic minded, we can't accept that. And yet we use the term Ubuntu, which says unless you can accept that, you're not practicing Ubuntu.
You know, I want to keep kind of going with what Jabari started or has said in terms of you know, our elders that are left and really, you know, walking our truth and listening to their wisdom, and to just sort of just segue just for a minute on this trip to Ghana, because this fits into a lot of things. So first, let me just say, family, I know that you guys have seen Professor Nylon here all the time. And, you know, I'm always like, oh, Professor. But let me tell you, I have a new level of respect for Professor Small. Having traveled with him and seen and being a witness to what he was able to, or has been able to develop in Ghana. There's a lot of people who's traveled that traveled with us to Ghana the end of July to the first week of August that are in the chat. So peace, you guys can, you know, say something. I mean, or say Ghana or something in there so everybody know who you are. But I have to, I remember when before we left and you were talking about, when I asked you, I was like, well, why did you pick Ghana to, you know, to develop a tour for? And can you tell everyone your answer, Professor? Or you want me to tell you? Okay.
I probably don't even remember the answer.
You know, you have a hard time. Wait, side note, you have a hard time taking compliments, and you know
that's true.
And so sometimes I think that you know, and then you'll just be surprised when someone is like moved by something you're saying. But I really, you know, I've been doing, you know, quite a few trips, but this, like the people, and when you were, you know, when Jabari and you were saying that we share the same belly, one of the things that that popped up, and I was thinking about what the first place that we went to was this statue. When you said we're sharing the same belly, I wonder why is it? Wait, do you guys, can you see it, or am I the only person seeing it?
We're seeing images of Baaba and Baaba Small, and
all right, I'm gonna show you this one right here. But yeah, Professor, so I really like what you've done is profound. Okay, it's profound, and we really appreciate you, you know, taking us along for the ride, because it was way more than a trip, a tour. It was a sacred pilgrimage, like for real. So I want you to know, you know, we would not have been able to explain, you know, do that without you.
Well, let me just, you know, I grew up in an African village in South Carolina. Many of y'all are youngsters, but your grandparents, we really still lived in African villages in the 1950s, in the 1940s, in the early 60s. It wasn't until after the 60s when we were leaving the rural area in such big numbers and coming into urban America, we left those African villages behind because we were taught in this language, it was country, it was rural, that's where backwardsness reside, but I never felt that. I was a Muslim imam over a very significant mosque, the Muslim Mosque Inc., founded by Malcolm X. I went to Mecca as the imam. I was Al-Hajj Amin Al-Shahid. Outside of the Nation of Islam, I was the most powerful Muslim leader in America, and I didn't want any of that. I stayed almost invisible for a decade. No one knew who the imam was. But when I came back from the pilgrimage to Mecca, the one thing I knew, that wasn't the pilgrimage for African people, because I understood from going on that pilgrimage what a pilgrimage was. And so I came to Dr. Leonard Jeffries and I had a conversation and said, we got to start a pilgrimage home. And we got to make the slave dungeons in Africa, we have to make them our Kaaba. That was the original conversation with Leonard. And, you know, Dr. Jeffries was my buddy. 60 plus years we walked together. And God bless him, he's coming healing very well. And so I went there on a spiritual journey. Dr. Jeffries took me on my first trip to Ghana. Just him and I. We had gone to Togo with a group, and he said, I got something to show you. So he took me over. He called a friend of his, someone who would become my spiritual teacher. Her name is Nana Fuasa Afriye. And so we met this lady at a hotel, the Ambassador, which is now the something tree in Ghana. And I had on sneakers, and she wanted us to go with her to Kumasi, to her house and her shrine. But she said, you can't travel with me in those sneakers. So she took my sneakers and threw them in the garbage. And she had a man come to the hotel, and in front of me, this man made me a pair of sandals. And then we got on the plane and we flew to Kumasi. And when we got to her house, dinner was prepared. Fried chicken, rice, and collard greens. So I thought, well, this lady know me. She know I'm a Kichi boy from South Carolina. And that moment, I knew I was home. I knew I was home, and I knew I had to bring people home. What I mean by home, I had come into the living spiritual culture. I felt it. I knew it. Mecca didn't feel nothing like that for me. I knew this was the place we had to make pilgrims. So the very first trip we did was called the African Pilgrimage Project. And we would operate as the African Pilgrimage Project until we became Cultural Heritage African Tours, doing pilgrimage projects. And the idea was to take people home so that they could begin to realize, one, all of those ancestors that make up our family lines that was killed over here, when you went home, you took them home. You took them back. So all that experience in slavery and the Middle Passage, you took those people back home and you deposited them there. And you brought new spirits back here with you to help us fight this battle from the ancestors there. To me, that became the process. I'm the magic man. And one of my other teachers, and I'd like to call his name because he passed on Tuesday, his name is Dr. Ben Abdallah. And he's the founder, one of the founding conceivers of Panafest and Emancipation Day in Ghana. And I got to work with him on both projects. And he's a strong Muslim brother, so he's already been buried. But those were the reasons, some of the reasons, but it was around the pilgrimage. It was around going back home spiritually and being able to know it. And I went there and I knew it, you know. Then I would go, you know, to Kemet a little while later and had and people like to call it out-of-body experience. I didn't have an out-of-body experience. I had a death experience in Kemet, right? And I came back to life in Kemet. And everything that it showed me was that there was a living culture, that Kemet was like the encyclopedia and the dictionary of our culture. But the culture didn't die. It did not get lost. It was being lived all over Africa. Same culture. And we can go and see it in practice. You know, they had different tools. You know, you wouldn't expect people in the desert to use the same tools that people in the rainforest use to explain the same idea. But they're explaining the same idea with different tools. You wouldn't expect the people in Haiti who had an experience of slavery to expect the idea the way the person in Congo who had not had an experience of slavery would express the same idea. But they would just have different tools. And that's when I really understood that this oneness thing. I haven't achieved it yet, but I'm chasing it like full force. And the pilgrimage to Africa each year, the pilgrimage to Ghana particularly and especially, because I'm initiated in the Ga tradition in Ghana. There I'm near Hito Okrepong. The Ga tradition traced their history from Nubia, and the Ewe traced their history from Nubia into the land that we now call Togo and Ghana. And on many of their boats, they have kefra and they have a sar chiseled into their fishing boats.
Wow.
Though many of the lay people may have forgotten these things, the priestcraft know who they are. You know? And so those things made me want to go home. Every day I yearn to go to Ghana. Every day I yearn. I was just telling my wife a few nights ago, I wanted to be there 50 years ago, but we had work to do here. Now we're taking care of our mother, who just turned 99 on Friday, and we celebrated her yesterday.
Oh, Twan.
Wow. On the earth, we will stay here in America, but my yearning is to be home.
Yes.
I didn't ask to come here. I fought every conscious moment of my life being here for freedom, for my people, but I didn't ask for this. But I know what my responsibility is in this. And thanks to the brothers like Baaba Heru, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Dr. Jeffries, I grew up with Malcolm's sister Ella. I grew a consciousness that let me accept Africa as real. Accept it's real. And I gotta give it to Taki Esau, because every month I've read a new book. The wisdom that he unfolded. No one else was unfolding at that time. The only other medium that came close was the Muhammad Speaks, and they were just dealing with their thing, but dealing with the esoteric science, dealing with Kemet, dealing with Sudan, dealing with that deep knowledge. It was only coming out of the Ansar Allah community that would become the Nuwabian community. So when I say his teacher, you'll understand what I'm talking about. There was a body of knowledge that was coming out at that time. And if you weren't reading that, and I got all of those magazines and books stored in my daughter's garage. If you weren't reading that literature, you were missing something. First, it was amazing. How does he get to know all of this stuff? How does he get? So he sends you to do reading. I'm reading about Masada and the Nile and the Sudan, and I go like, oh yeah, he's telling the truth. And once you find that space, the truth is real for you, and you become a trajectory.
So I just want to, I'd like to back up a little bit because I'd like to get clarity for the people in the audience, because sometimes we'll have some viewers that may not be familiar with different African spiritual systems. So, Professor, you make reference to different African spiritual systems, whether it's in on the continent or in the diaspora, having a lot of similarities within their myths and their allegories.
No, I'm gonna stop you right there. They don't have similarities. They have sameness.
Sameness.
They have different tools.
Gotcha.
But there's only one truth. There's only one sun, one moon, one Milky Way. The same amount of minerals and elements that make up the body of the guy in Ghana, made up the body of the guy in Egypt, made up the body of Kemet, the guy in Sudan. They understood this fundamental understanding of cosmology and ecology. Only environment and the time you come into the knowledge explains the different tools and methodology for explaining it. But it's the same system being explained using different tools. So the Yoruba is trying to explain the same thing that the Kemetian is trying to explain. The Voodoo in Haiti is trying to explain the same thing that the Dogon is trying to explain. It's just that they're in different ecology and environment at different time in history, that they're trying to come up with the tools and the method of teaching. 1 and 1 is 2, but you may have 100 different teachers who approach the explanation of 1 and 1, equaling 2, but you're only dealing with 1 and 1 equals 2. And so there's only one African system, one African spiritual system. And all of these things we call African religions or spiritual sciences, they're all teaching that same one system. And that's the thing we need to understand. If we could do that, then the differences of methodology of teaching won't matter. They'll actually be welcome, to explain why Black Americans, and this is what I love about Bubba when he was trying to take Kemet and make it simple, make it plain, so Black Americans can understand it. We no longer live in Kemet. We no longer speak Medu-Neter. The time it would take for the rest of us to learn enough Medu-Neter to teach the wisdom system to would be the next couple of thousand years. So how do we learn the wisdom system? A master like him, like Baaba Heru, learn that mystery system and then teach it to us in the colloquium of African America, daily language, cultural understanding. And we may say, oh, he ain't doing nothing different. He come up with a different set of tools and a different methodology to take that same body of knowledge that King Tut was taught, that Akhenaten was taught, and teach it to Hassan, and teach it to Jabari. But it's the same body of knowledge. It's the same body of information. It can't change because the laws of cosmology is not going to change for us because we don't understand it. The laws of nature is not going to change. That tree will still absorb oxygen, carbon dioxide, and that tree will still give off oxygen. That tree will still, when it gets cold, shed its leaf. Not because it doesn't like the leaf, but if he's got to feed all those leaves when he's got no sunlight to give him the energy to do it, the tree's going to die. So he drops the leaves so he can absorb enough sunlight to live, to then, when it gets warm enough again, and he doesn't have to worry about the cold sapping up its energy, the tree could then give life to itself again as acorns and leaves and so forth. That cycle is a continuum, and that's what the ancestors was trying to teach us, these fundamental laws of how nature works and how we work as a part of the thing. We're not separate from it. And so that's what all of those systems are trying to do, given their location by the river, in the savannah, in the desert, and the rainforest. But they're all trying to teach the same thing, the oneness, to know the divine. What we call in the divine is the totality of everything. And in order for something to be omnipotent, omnipresent, omnipotent, and supreme, it means nothing else can exist but it. So we're not separate existences. We are different aspects of the same existence. And I think in the pyramid text it says it. Amun says, I exist so that existing might exist. But the first existence is saying he exists, or it exists, so that existence itself might exist. And then he discussed what existence looked like in all of its various parts.
Thank you for that.
For those of you who are listening, we are now bequeathing you your master's degree. Listen, I'm going to tell you, Baba Small has a way of...
I got a good memory from my teachers. So.
He is describing extremely complex
memory.
These are complex concepts that are being made plain for you to be able to live. And I always say that in the African tradition, there are so many people who, when I have these conversations, who are ensconced in the Abrahamic traditions that have no understanding. Someone was saying to me, Jabari said that the Neteru aren't real. And I said, that's not what I said. You said they weren't real. You said they were principles. I said, but principles are real. There are people in my own lineage who have died for freedom. They didn't see freedom, taste freedom, speak to freedom, but they knew what freedom was. And they would, you're just not making any sense. So part of the challenge is that we're listening to the youngest people on the planet when it comes to our most esoteric and fundamental concepts. And they haven't really been around long enough to be able to understand them in their fullness. And so the challenge is that when we come to the African spiritual continuum, they are absolutely saying the same thing. When I'm in Kemet, and I will often go to Kemet and to Ghana in the same trip, as you know, I'll be in Kemet and look at the power of the baboon on the top of the temple that is unfortunately mostly known as Abu Simbel. Wrong name, but it's the temple of Ramses II, and you see the baboons at the very top greeting the sun. Well, when you go to Ghana, then you'll see the shrine to the rooster. The rooster does the same exact thing. Not a lot of roosters in Kemet, right? So what they are trying to do is describe the same exact reality, but they're using, as Baba Small so eloquently put so many times,
different tools.
They're describing it in their own ecology so that it might look different to the uninitiated. But the reality is, once you begin to understand the fundamental nature of it, you'll see that it's exactly the same thing.
Let me say this, Hassan, because did you grow up in Islam at all? I know you haven't.
No, I didn't.
Okay, but you've got a nice Muslim name, Islamic name,
yes.
Arabic name.
Yes.
And in Islam, they have something called the Pearls of Faith. Anybody ever heard of the 99 Pearls of Faith?
No.
It's called the 99 Names of Allah. They're the very same things as 99 Loas. They're the very same thing of 99 Netches. They're the very same thing as 9, but they won't tell you that they took your system, right? And they interpreted for their culture using your ancient ancestors' understanding, but they put it in a framework for them to learn. And so many in the Muslim development over here don't even know certain teaching tools because they don't want us to know it. I happen to have had some good teachers from the Sudan, people who taught Malcolm, and they said, let me show you some stuff. And people like Haji Sham, the man who buried Malcolm, who was my primary teacher, they go like, wow, it's the same thing. And when you translate each one of the 99 names, it's a quality and attribute of nature. It's a quality and attribute of cosmology. So, whoa, what are y'all talking about? Come on. This is one of my grandchildren are coming home. This is King Akhenaten.
Yes.
You look tired. Doing all right? Okay. All of them, I had a unique way of trying to name for the same whisper. All of them have an English name of one of the ancestors here, and all of them have. This is Betsy. Okay, this is my daughter, Sister Betsy. That's a beautiful little son you just saw.
Hi! Oh my God, Pops, that's for real.
Peace, Queen. Peace, peace, peace.
Hi!
But this is a good example of the one, and this is Amari. This thing called family that we struggle to maintain and keep. Expanded out. Then the family become the nation. Then the family become the race. The same love it takes for them little boys to feel me is the same love it takes for me to feel the neighborhood, like and the clan, and then the tribe, and then the nation. It is just this little group here is just a what is it called? A microcosm of the greater race, macrocosmic. And so the same rules apply at every level. The rules won't change if we want unity to happen, if we want love to be shown, if we want the thing to be worked. We got to learn the rule, then expand the rule into everything else.
Learn the rule, expand the rule. Learn the rule, then expand the rule. Yeah.
The same sun that shines on China shines on us. Does the same thing for the Chinese that it does for us. We just have to learn how to interpret it so we can explain it to ourselves and use it in the best way possible. That knowledge.
Just as you see it.
We were in the we were backstage, and you made a comment. You said We can't stop nothing like we can't start nothing. Can you explain that?
Yes, because in the African understanding, in the Kemetic understanding, there is no beginning and there is no end. It is impossibility. There's no possibility that could explain a beginning with authenticity or an end with authenticity. So we're a part of a cycle. Jabari was explaining it much better than me when he was talking about Baba coming and going. That they come back here, these spirits, and they take on the flesh that we are. Each one of there's 5 of us, but each one of us is a manifestation of divine as human.
Yes.
But there's a process of learning that would allow us to mimic being that. And that's what this learning process is, that we will become what we understand. And Baaba Heru was one of those light, then a Kaaba, a lighted, he was one of those lighted temples that showed us how to light our temples, you know.
I like that.
And so it seems difficult, but I said we don't create nothing and we can't end it, because that we, for convenience, it's like time. We made the clock for convenience, but we could throw the clock away. There are people who never seen a clock, all right? Yet they know time.
Yep.
You know, but for us, we've made it. It's a very useful tool, and it helps us. But we don't need it, because we will know time by what the tree does, what the water does, what the sun does, what the animal does, what the bird does, what the fish does. They will tell us what time it is, because everything will behave in relationship to a cycle that has no beginning and has no ending to it. I think about the circle being unbroken. It's eternal. And what we need to, something in our way it gets complex in our teachings, and Baba used to teach us about this one, about Set. Now, the white man, I hate to use his name in that, even in any discussion we have, but those people who misinterpret Set as being a devil, he's not.
That's right.
Yes.
He's the aspect of us that you can't have Ma'at without Set. Set is one pan on the scale, and Heru is the other. How do you keep them balanced, though? What keeps them balanced is what happens in that center pole between the two pans of the scale. Is you always see Ma'at. Ma'at is that on the top of that pole. Ma'at is that perfect harmony and balance that's struck between the two elements that's represented as Set and Heru, and they represent harmony and balance at its best. When we behave in a certain way or we're ignorant about a certain thing, that's what throws things out of balance. When we act out of ignorance instead of act out of fundamental truth, things get thrown out of balance. And that's why the concept of truth is so essential to the Kemetian understanding of reality, because it's what allows you to maintain the balance. Because when you lose balance, we have the chaos. You understand? The chaos comes with imbalance. And so our ancestors have already struggled to say, how do we understand nature and how do we understand cosmos so we could keep the balance?
One of the best places to see that balance in stone, if you go to the Temple of Kamambo, you'll see that the Kemetic shrine that is bifurcated on one side, and they're exactly the same, except one side is consecrated to Heru, the other is consecrated to Sebek. And so you get the sense of their divine balance. There was a one point where, now listen, there are people who have spent too much time ensconced in the traditions of the youngest people on the planet. Someone said to me once, how do you know that this is actually about divine balance and it's about Ma'at? They challenged me. And so I tried to show them the images that I've taken in the temple. You have the two holies of holies, the one for Heru and one for Sebek. But if you go behind the wall of both of those, in the middle is literally the image of Ma'at weighing.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be clear that these concepts are concepts that our African ancestors were attempting to describe to us in a way that would be tenable.
We would get it. Yeah.
And very often, as we've made these stories literal and historical, we've missed that they're supposed to be describing the cycles and the fundamental principles of the universe and our role in it.
Yes.
So we've made them literal historical stories rather than understanding that, no, that's the story of things always becoming and going and becoming and going. And so that's the challenge. And I know very well, I heard Baba Small say that all of the African traditions are actually the same, just descriptions from different ecologies. And I laugh because I know that when I know that's absolutely true. That's how I live it. But when the Tom who tell me that, I go, no, how dare you say they're all the same? And that's just me.
They don't even mean the same thing.
Being problematic, right? But it's the same. It is the same. They're describing the same relationship to the universe using different words, and they will tell you that.
Heru now for us, Baaba Heru is now a nature. See, if we understand what a nature is, Baaba Heru is now a nature. Now, it is for us to understand what powers, what concepts, what ideas, what principle that he accentuated better than anyone we know that is going to affect how we see the rest of our lives. And so we have to put him in place as a nature. Same thing if we put him in place as an Orisha. And Orisha is not them pretty pictures we see drawn. Those are anthropomorphic representative from the mind of somebody. If what's the sister name? If Yemaya would look like a woman, this is how she'd look. But that's just somebody's idea of what the concept would look like if she was a woman. If Oya was a living being, this is what she would look like. But Baba has become a nature. Not because I say so. Baba has become a nature because his works, his life works, and his life living has taught us so. Now, can we remember and interpret and enshrine it so we can use it as a tool to teach future generations?
Yeah, it's incumbent on us. That's
right.
Yeah. You had said something, Professor, about it's slipping my mind, but when it's so interesting because we're talking about all these concepts, and I keep coming back to something you said at the beginning of the interview was that, you know, he was living these things. So sometimes it's very like intellectual when we're talking about stuff and we can understand it like that. And I think that that's the best gift of elders is that we see them like living those concepts, right. You know, and not being perfect, but you know, but really saying that I'm going to be about
the truth that you know. The truth that you know, you become that truth. And that's what Baba did. He became the truth that he knew.
Yeah.
It is those truths that is universal. There wasn't his truth peculiar. These are the universal truths that every great master and every great civilization that has ever come has lived. Well, he learned those truths and lived those truths, thus becoming those truths. That's why I said he had become a divine.
Yeah.
Become actually the divine.
Yeah. And that's what we got to get. Like everyone that's listening to this, you know, it's not just about the talk of it. It's about the walk.
And it's hard to walk that walk. I can tell you.
Let me tell you.
Walking one day, and I was saying, "Oh, to the ancestors, I am so happy. I understand your wisdom. I understand your honesty." And I saw this beautiful sister going down the street. I forgot all about the ancestors. Then you got to get yourself back online. You know what I'm saying? Woo! I got to go focus. Then somebody offer you the money, and you go, "Oh, I need that money." They go, "Wait a minute, I can't do that. I got to stick with the fundamental principle that makes me one with the universe itself." And if any of these other attractions or distractions take me from being that, then I have to rebirth myself. And that's what wisdom does. The knowledge Baba gave us, the knowledge our great ancestors give us, is to give us a body of knowledge so we can constantly rebirth ourselves until we're strong enough to be the thing that we gave birth to.
Absolutely. That is life. Summed up, that's life. So we are we're kind of, you know, headed down. But one thing I wanted to say, or I wanted to show, was this beautiful picture of you know, of it's, you know, I know you've taken lots of trips to Ghana with lots of people, but I wanted the family to see how we were rolling. And when you talk about all of us as one, we all moved as one. Like nobody, we it's, you know, that's the beautiful thing when you travel. It's like you may want to be an individual. And I think that travel is such a nice metaphor for life, because you may want to be an individual. You may want to get someplace, but until the rest of the 93 people get on the bus, you're not going. And so, I mean, that's just like how it is in life. It's like if one person, you know, just because one person is ready, you know, everybody got to be ready. Everybody has to be ready. We all have to work.
And that was one of the most united group of people I've ever traveled with.
No,
the most beautiful set of spirits I'd ever seen. And they're still talking about us in Ghana. I was at the parade on 125th Street today.
Oh, wow.
My godson and his mate had just come back from Ghana, taken to sprinkle his father, John, who was one of my great brothers, ashes. And the sister says, I never knew who you was, and I'm in Ghana, and they're talking about Professor Small and his group.
We were rolling. We was everywhere.
An amazing impact because of the way people moved, you know.
Yeah.
The way this group moved.
Yeah, and it was not a leaving of someone behind. You know, everyone just, you know, it's, and I think that's one of the things. I'm telling you, people should just travel with a group. Travel with a group of Black folks, because then you will get to see unity on a whole different level, and you'll see the hope that this can happen. You know, you'll see it. Yep. And I tell you, we formed a WhatsApp group, and I tell you, we on this WhatsApp group like we're like, you know, family. I mean, we are family, but you know, we're just it's really nice. This is just, it's a very nice thing. So if anyone ever, you know, has a chance to travel, 100% take the chance.
Malcolm said it broadens your scope. And the interpretation of that, it lets you realize what's your relationship. When you go to Africa and you come from the Caribbean, Central South America, or the United States, the first thing you see when you get there is, oh my God, this is me. These are not different people. That's right. The accents, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you're hanging with your homies, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But somebody has made us think there's this great gulf between us that can't be crossed.
That's right.
And the gulf is mainly ignorance of one another. And what the traveling do is take away that ignorance, you know? And you get to see. There was a sister, if you don't mind, it was about 10 years ago, we went on that trip. And she's Puerto Rican, light-skinned Puerto Rican. If you see her, you go like, yo, she ain't no real homie, right? Married to a beautiful brother. And once I got to meet them, I found out she's a Yoruba priestess, right? But she remember her grandmother gave her a name of an African ancestor. And she was in her 50s. And she said, but Small, I wish I could find this name. What culture you think it came from? When she told me the name, I knew it was an Ankh word. So I called Kwame, because I've been working with Kwame for 30-something years in Sunseekers. I said, could you find this name, this family? Do you know we found her family?
Wow.
In Ashanti, went to the village. The people stopped the funeral when they heard that a child that had been lost to slavery was bad. There was a big funeral going on in the village. The chief and certain elders left and came with us to greet her and give her gifts, and brought family members from that woman's line, from the name this lady in Puerto Rico gave me, and reunited them there on the spot.
Wow.
That's when you know spirit got power.
But Baba Small, I thought Africans hate us. What in that? What do we hear? What is that?
I'm so shocked to go and receive this deep love. And I remember when
we don't see no hate.
When that happened, do you know what it meant to that sister? She cried all day.
That's right.
To come into that village after the Stansika people had found the village, found the family name, contacted the elders in the village, who said, you know, they'd lost many people that had taken away during the slavery. And this lady walked in the village. They brought the priests. They brought the priestess. They brought the linguist. Then the king came. And then once they were clear on the name and the sounding, and the priest did the reading, then they sent for members of this family to come and meet this lady. And it was the heck of a thing. And there's so many of us who can go home and just by your facial structure, people recognize you. They'll tell.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm not from Southern Ghana. I know I'm from Kemet, right? Because an old man told me, he says, you know, you're always here with us in Ashanti and you're always on the coast. He said, but those are not your people. You have to go you got to go to the north. And so I learned the stories of the people who migrated from Kemet into Chad, into Burkina Faso, into Ghana, what is now Ghana. It wasn't Ghana then, you know. And those people established themselves as Ashantis and other nation kingdoms there. I learned from going to Togo and learning the story. There's a village in Togo, most beautiful village you ever want to see. Except not a single person live in any of the houses in the village except the Wulamas, the priests. All of the other houses are the gods they brought from Nubia. And each god has its own dwelling place.
That's right.
This stuff is deep. You can't make this up.
That's right.
Understand? So
yeah,
going home is just going home.
It's going home. Yeah.
And
yeah.
you know,
I know.
Because of the comfortableness of the feeling.
Yes. I know that Baba Small is initiated in the Ga. I'm actually part of the Fanti communities along the coast, and I know that there is a large statue of one of the two brothers who the Fanti say created their communities as they migrated from Kemet.
Right.
And this is precisely what they say. One of them, they say the chief of them, his name was Asebu Amenfi, the giant of Asebu, sometimes they call him Asebu Amenfi. And we just assisted in building a very large statue of one of them. The brother of Asebu Amenfi is the one that was said to have taught people to fish. Now I'm going to tell you, if you go to the market and you ask a child of 5 years old where the Fanti come from, they will tell you that they migrated from Kemet, and Asebu Amenfi was the person that did that. This is not something that African Americans have tried to convince them of. This is their fundamental national narrative of who they are.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the ways that we should understand that as we go home, as Baba Small is saying, you recognize that you've gone home. You recognize that the understanding that you had is one that you begin to understand exactly why you had that understanding. I know that the first time I went to Ghana, and I actually saw an argument between two women, and I didn't know what they were saying, but I knew what they were saying. It could have been my aunts having an argument. And as one woman said something to the other one looked at her and said, I said, wow, that's my aunt having an argument with my aunt. So when you travel to the continent, you begin to recognize yourself. You recognize that the ways that we behave have an origin. Now, that doesn't mean that the African American, the Afro-Caribbean, and others have not taken and innovated among the
and that's what life
milieu
is
that is
about.
African
Innovation,
culture.
synthesizing.
That's right.
you
That's
know,
right. That's right. So I'm not taking away from the
innovating
African American,
you know,
Afro-Caribbean experience. I am saying that there is a root, and we are a very large, important branch on that
Right.
tree, and so that's
Yeah.
of critical importance.
There's-
And I hope that we get it. I really do. I hope that
and
we get it.
Kemet is everywhere because it's an elder, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go, I was initiated before Dr. Ben started the craft. I was initiated in the craft in Chad.
Mm.
Now, some details, of course, I can't share, but what we call the craft. The president of Chad at the time was Tumpu Bye-Bye. I did something to alert him of his assassination. He would get assassinated, but one of his sons he sent to me, and the other son he sent to a friend before he's assassinated, so we could take care of them into manhood. But the name of the tribe that Tumpu Bye-Bye is a member of, it is going to blow your mind. He's a member. This is the first president of independent Chad, and he was a member of the Sa-Ra. That's the tribe name, the Sa. He can't make this up. He was a chief element of the Sa-Ra. They made the fight against the French, the Sa-Ras, that brought Chad to independence. Right? And so I had a spiritual relationship and encounter that brought me to the feet of the president. And as a gift for what I did, I didn't know what I was doing, but I did it out of sincerity. I was allowed into this way of knowing reality, which we call the craft.
Thank you for that. As we wind down and about to head out, Jabari, I just wanted to ask you just to give us a little bit of clarity on being at the autumn equinoxes tomorrow. Explain what the autumn equinox is and how can we apply it in our lives for our advantage, for our spirituality.
Well, in some ways, in order to best answer that, it's to pick up the pieces of the conversation we've already had, right? We've talked about how in the African tradition we recognize the importance of the sun. We've been misnomered sun worshipers by people who don't truly understand what we are doing, but we understand that without the sun we would not be able to exist, right? And so when we talk about the importance of the sun, we're talking about the importance of time, the importance of the movements of the heavens. The four aspects of the sun that are most recognizable are the solstices and the equinoxes. Tomorrow in our hemisphere happens to be the autumnal equinox, which means that there will be a moment where we have equal amount of light and equal amount of darkness. In many ways, our African ancestors in Kem and in other places recognized that this was a divine moment to teach the as above, so below. The concept of divine balance that Baba Small was talking about between Heru and Set. Once again, seeing equal amount of darkness and equal amount of light gave us a way to tell these great narratives and furthermore, even to situate ourselves within this great astro-theological drama. And so tomorrow, you should know that tomorrow, by the way, the Shrine of Ma'at always has a celebration on the equinoxes and the solstices. I will be at the celebration in Central Park at the Tekken, at that thing that the New York City thinks is called Cleopatra's Needle. It wasn't built by Cleopatra and it ain't a needle. But if you're in Central Park, you don't know where you are, and you ask for the Tekken, they're going to say, God bless you. They're not going to know what you're talking about, right? They're going to think you're sneezing. Even if you say obelisk, which is the Greek name, they won't know what you're talking about. You're going to have to say I'm looking for Cleopatra's Needle, and we have a celebration there every equinox and solstice for that particular movement of the sun as it appears to us on the earth. We know that the sun is actually not what's happening. It's actually our movement around the sun that we are recognizing, right? And so tomorrow will be specifically powerful because we erect an altar at this location at the Tekken every year. But this year, at every solstice and equinox, this particular celebration will be erecting an ancestral altar to Baaba Heru as well. So this is one of those days at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. and at the Tekken, which is right behind the Metropolitan Museum. If you don't,
I know where it's at.
Yeah, I know you'll know where it is. I'm saying for the people listening.
Yeah.
So absolutely, it's one of those moments. It's one of those moments that we see Ma'at played out, right? I mean, you'll turn on TV and they'll say, "This is the equinox." We'll have the equal amount of day and equal amount of night. This is in the secular world. They're recognizing that something specifically amazing is going on in our heavens. And this gives us an opportunity. We talked about the difference between those who are initiated and those who are not, or not yet initiated. Let's describe it. This gives us an opportunity to talk about some of the greater principles and practices of our African traditions, actually, as they occur for everyone that we can actually see. So that is what will be happening. Tomorrow is a great day for you to restore balance with someone. It is a day of balance, right? Restore balance. Give them a call and say, I have to restore balance with you. I was upset. Maybe you were upset. Did I transgress against you? You transgressed against me. Remember, we are talking about not just the Ubuntu of this, the reality that we are, that we only exist because we are the we, that I exist because of the we, but we're also at a moment where the things that are going on in our sky help us to deal with that story most effectively.
I like that. Restore balance with someone, with people. That's nice.
Yeah. On the solstices and equinoxes, these are absolutely good days to call someone and say, "Can I restore balance with you?" Of course, in the Kemetic tradition, the term is Siruj Ma'at, restore Ma'at, and you'll actually see that on the walls and on papyri, you're going to see people restoring balance. It comes in and out of balance. It is important for us to restore balance on a day like tomorrow.
And may I add something when we talk about this balance?
Please do.
Listening to Brother Jabari, and I've met so many of the other young brothers over the years and sisters who have been taught by Baaba Heru and raised to the level of the priestcraft. Each one of you, now that his physical body has given up the energy, each one of you are a piece of him. In reality, he lives as you. A major aspect of his being, you are now that. The brothers and sisters who have inherited his wisdom, not only the intellectual part of that wisdom, but the spiritual energy that informs that intellectual part of that wisdom. So you are Baaba Heru, and all of his other acorns, if we want to call y'all acorns or children, you are him going forward. That's the way it works. There is no death. It's just body hopping. He just
That's right. That's right.
One ain't working so good no more. Let me hop into 10 or 30 or 100 more. And I become such. And I mean that in the most serious way it could be meant.
It is of critical importance for us to, on a day like this, also when we're recognizing the transition of an elder into ancestordom, that we, as I would tell the people who are practitioners, get up in our altars, right? This is a time for us to spend some time with the elder, feeding them, that we feed them, that we say their name, that we give them those things that they enjoyed, and it assists us in keeping them alive, because remember, that which you feed is that which lives. If you do not feed it, it will not live.
Mhm.
And so as an ancestor, we must remember that we must feed the ancestral soul of those who have done the great work. And in this instance, of course, Baaba Heru, Ankh, Ra, Semajh, Ptah.
Wow. All right, family. I want to thank these two brothers for coming on tonight. It's been some time again since we've been here. It's definitely an enriching discussion. You never know kind of where these conversations are going to lead you. You know, title together, we'll have a discussion in mind, but we bring on great minds, and that's one aspect of it, and spirit is another aspect, and just this whole thing of interconnectedness. And I like to say also, as we close down, that this opportunity that we had this summer with working with cultural heritage tours was amazing, and it was something that Professor Smalls and I have talked about for many, many years. But it also speaks to the conversation of just being this oneness. And we had the emblem up a minute ago. People, they had this thing on their shirts, which speaks of the oneness of, it had the Ndinkra and Metal Netra symbols all around it. And just speaking of, again, that conversation of the different expressions and different tools. So we're definitely in alignment with who we are, and we just have to keep doing what we're doing. And as Brother Kaba says, keeping on. So with that, you got any final words, Professor Smalls?
Know that Baaba Heru is eternal. And his life did not begin with the birth of that body that we know as Semajh. That was just the latest manifestation of the divine as human to do the task that that aspect of the divine was sent to do. Know that.
Facts. Jabari?
I promise this will be short. But I'm going to read something from the Reyu Pertem Gear, which is been misnomered the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Sometimes when we say these things, and I know you've heard this too, Baba Small, people say, oh, someone said to me once, you just metaphysicalizing it.
Yeah.
And I said, no. The reason why you're saying that is because you haven't read the primary text. I've listened to lots of scholars. I said, I'm telling you, you have to read the primary text. So as we are saying that the ancestor goes in the ancestral realm and returns and is a netcher, I'm gonna here. This is a very small section, just a few sentences that says all of that in the ancient text. Baba Small and I did not make it up.
Nope.
We're not freestyling here. And for those of you who have this edition that was translated by E.A. Wallace Budge, remember he didn't write it; he just translated it. It would occur on page 10. I'm going to just read it really quickly. It says, and this is a prayer to one who has made their transition. I'm going to only read it in English, right? Just because not everyone's going to read the glyphs, but I want you to hear it so you understand that this is exactly what our ancestors were saying. It says, give thou splendor in heaven, might on earth, triumph in the land of the Neteru, of the divine. Sailing down to Jejedu as a living soul, sailing up to Abydos or Abtu as a bird reborn, going in and coming out without being repulsed at the gateways of the Duat. There it is. You're going into the afterlife and coming out without being repulsed. You can go both ways. Why? Because it says here, may this one be given loaves of bread in the house of coolness, offerings in Anu, in the field enduring of wheat and barley, in it to the soul of Asar as the scribe Ani. So everything that we've talked about is just in those powerful sentences. We have the concept that ancestors go into the ancestral realm and return. We have the concept that we have to continue doing their work, saying their names. This is us feeding them, because that which you feed is that which lives. And then finally, we see that this particular text was written to Anui, right? Who they have shortened as Ani. But you should know that they're saying here that Anui, as the one who is rectified, is Asar. That is all in here. We didn't make it up. We're not just saying stuff that sounds good because we like to hear our own voices. This is precisely what the ancestors wrote and left behind so that we would understand the wholeness of their wisdom. So with that, let me say, Baaba Heru, I know as much as I miss your physical form, as much as I would love to pick up the phone and just hear your voice, hello, beloved, I would rather know that you are without pain, that you're without tribulation, that you are now one of the Ankh, one of the golden spirits. You can do more for us in that form than you could ever have done in physical form. So I say to you, please continue your wonderful journey on the boat of Ra. And as you arrive to the ancestral realm, we will make offering for you. I can't wait to hear your ancestral voice as I heard for many decades your physical voice. Dwanter, Dwanter, Dwanter. Thank you to the divine.
Dua. Thank you, brothers, and go ahead, Felicia.
No, I said that's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, I know it was last minute, and just want to say thank you to our guests, Jabari Zaze and Professor James Moore. And it's a very enriching conversation. And I know I learned a lot. I know the family, just based off the comments in the chat, was everyone's mind was kind of blown. So if you brothers may just hang out backstage for a minute while the three of us kind of close out the show, and so we'll say our pleasantries. All right, peace.
Sounds good. See you soon.
Thank you.
Peace.
All right, family. Thank you so much. It was a Sunday night, and it's getting kind of late, and we do appreciate everyone that's been here with us, everyone that's been in the building. We want to give a special shout out and thank you to all those who were generous in donating showing their love to Cash App, GoFundMe, and Super Chats as well. I want to say thank you, Dua, to all those who did that. It definitely goes a long way to helping put this together. And we kind of showed the emblem on screen and those types of things, getting the artists and the graphic people to help design and create those concepts. One, are not easy, and nor are they free. So everything that you do kind of helps us along in the world of HAPI. And again, thank you so much for being a part of this. And we have some really some big things coming along in the future. And please take this opportunity to tell a friend, and just stay tuned.
Yeah.
Hassan, Alicia.
You go ahead, Hassan.
Well, mine is going to be quick. I just want to tell the people, just be patient with me. Thank you for welcoming me. And, I'm gonna do my best. That's all I can say. I'm going to do my best. That's it. All right.
So, one thing I have to say, Hassan, you are definitely part of the family now. Anytime you're in the middle of having a conversation and if Professor Small says, let me stop you right there. That means you are down. You are down with us. Okay?
You've all been there.
Yep.
Yeah.
In your mind, you got your little question. You about to just deliver it. And then he's like, let me just stop you right there. So
yeah.
That's how manifestation works.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're so happy to for you to be up on here. So, family, I'm going to show, if you are subscribed to our newsletter, which I hope everyone in this chat is subscribed to our newsletter and is actually opening the newsletter, you would see that this morning I sent out this video to everyone, and also inviting them to come on to come and listen to this show. Tahuti Films, Seed, he put this together.
Shout out to Tahuti Films.
Yeah, like this is a really, he didn't do it for this particular moment. He did it as a promotional piece about Baaba Heru. Well, not about Baaba Heru. He's explaining the cosmology of the HAPI River. And so it's a beautiful piece. And one of the things that we didn't talk about, just briefly, is that I loved his voice. He pronounced every word correctly. And that piece was almost like like music. I mean, I know he played music because I was looking online. And also, let me just say, listen, I took all pictures from Facebook, and I'm not going to say they're all my pictures. So just, when you guys are looking at this, you're like, that's my picture. But you put it up on Facebook and on Instagram. So I just went ahead and snatched it off. But his voice was so, it told the story. It made you want to hear the story. And so this is a nice piece. We're going to play it, and then we're going to, you won't see us again. We're just going to end the show. So I hope that you guys.
Well, just real quick. Those pictures also told a story, and thank you for all those people who shared their experiences with Baaba Heru and allowed us to share your experiences. And it kind of fits into the oneness of who we are. So shout out to everyone who, put up those memories.
Yeah.
Special. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, fam. Well, Professor wasn't here to say his thing, peace and blessings. So, peace and blessings.
Iteru Kesbet, the Blue Nile, comes out of Lake Tana in Kush, or Kash, now called Ethiopia, and the Iteru Hech, or the so-called White Nile, coming out of the Victoria Nyanza in central equatorial Africa. Now, these two rivers together, rivers are typically referred to as Iteru. However, they differentiate between these two by calling one the White Nile, coming out of central equatorial Africa, and the Blue Nile, coming out of Lake Tana. They meet together at Khartoum in the place now called Sudan. We used to call it Kenset. And from there it flows down to the lotus tributaries of the great Green Sea, now called the Mediterranean. I need to add that it seems as if the yearly menstruation of our river took place once a year. And there seems to have been a connection between something that was taking place cosmically, the rise of the star Ast Sepedet, known as Potolo to the Dogon, known as Sirius today. Once it rose in the eastern horizon every year, approximately 3 to 4 days after, the river would start to swell and would then begin to inundate the thirsty lands down to the northern region of the nation. It was at this place that we see this connection between heaven and earth, that this yearly cosmic event brought about HAPI. By the way, HAPI means a dual vital force. Hap means one force. HAPI means two forces, these two rivers. And here's something interesting that you will not read in any book. These two rivers correspond to the two women, Ast and her sister Nebethet, who brought the body of Asar together again. Now, if you look at Asar's body as the soil, which is parched and dry and split apart by the heat of the summer, you can understand now how these two rivers now coming together and meeting at Khartoum, they cooperated together and they went down to the parched delta to bring the body of Asar as the Iteru, as the river, back together again, to restore the food supply of the nation.
know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority. Honestly,
who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?